this series, as I said before, we have examined 6 churches, and each one has received praise from Christ in some fashion. Ephesus was praised for its endurance and good doctrine. Smyrna was praised because it was rich in spirit. Sardis was praised for having a few genuine believers mixed in with all the many false professors. Pergamum was praised for holding fast to Jesus' name, even though they lived in a bad area. Thyatira was praised for love and good works, and Philadelphia was praised for keeping the Word of God. And now we come to Laodicea. And the first comment that I want to make is that there is no praises at all. Not one single commendation from the Lord. Not one good thing is said. And think about it. Even the churches that were housing false teachers got a little thumbs up. But not this church. This church, Christ immediately begins with a rebuke. And it is quite unpleasant. He calls them out because of one particular sin. And it is the sin of spiritual neutrality. He said, "You are not hot and you are not cold, but instead you are lukewarm. You're not on fire for the gospel, nor are you absolutely opposed to it. You're just lackadaisical in your attitude." And what's happened is it has come to pure callousness. Jesus said that this was worse than being dead. He said, "I would rather you be cold or be hot." And think of it like this. He said, "I'd rather you be really on fire for God. Just be hot and burning down the town with the gospel. Or I'd rather you not even be following me." Isn't that harsh? But it's true. You can't be halfway. He said, because if you're halfway, it's better off not doing it at all. Those who would call themselves Christians and yet be unconcerned about their Christianity are the ones that are in the crosshairs of Jesus' rebuke. And his rebuke is legendary. We all remember it. He said, "What? I will spit you out of my mouth." That's heavy. That's a frightening thought. And think about it. He's referencing a church. Now he's talking to a church, and he says to the church, "Look, guys, you're not hot. Wish you were hot. You're not cold either. Be better if you were one or the other. But because you're lukewarm, I'm going to spit you out of my mouth." And here's the thing about the church at Laodicea. It's what caused this. A lot of people think about the church at Laodicea, and it's easy to imagine a church like that. You look around America, and that kind of is the majority report, isn't it? Not hard to imagine what the church looked like. Did you ever wonder what caused it? He tells us it's not hidden. Verse 17 tells us exactly. He says, "You say this, I am rich, I have prospered, I need nothing." That was what caused it. He said, you've come to the point in your life where you've said, "I've done it all, I've seen it all, I've got it all. Got the t-shirt, I'm happy, I don't need nothing." The church was well off financially. And if you ever study the history of Laodicea, it's kind of interesting. The city was very wealthy. It was strategically located at 3 main roads. So it was the intersection for commerce. They had industry in Laodicea. They had a banking industry. They had a black wool industry. And also, they had a medical industry. So in this little town, this was kind of like a metropolis. They had industry going. They had crossroads where other people who were traveling would stop by and spend money. And guess what? That causes the economy. We all know about the economy. We're learning every day with the situation going on. What causes the economy to go up? People spend money, right? That's what's happening. They've got a crossroads here where people are going through, and they've got to buy traveling supplies. And they've got banks where they can make interest off people's money. And they've got a black wool industry where they can sell clothing and other pieces of garments that are used for different things that clothing is used for. And they've got also this medical facility. The only thing bad about Laodicea, and this is so ironic, the only thing bad about Laodicea was where they were, there was no natural water resource. So they had to build and dig an aqueduct that brought water in from surrounding areas. And what would happen when that water would travel is it would come from the cold springs, and it would, by the time it got to Laodicea, it would be lukewarm and nasty. It would be tepid. And along the way of the aqueduct, it would pick up dirt. And it would pick up germs and things. By the time it finally got to Laodicea, it was lukewarm. And guess what the people did when they put it in their mouth? They spit it out. And that's Jesus is using that analogy. Surrounding areas, there was 2 surrounding areas. One city, I believe it was Colossae, had cold springs. There was another city that had hot springs. They would pipe that water in, but guess what? The hot would get lukewarm when it got there. The cold would get lukewarm when it got there. They never got hot water or cold water. They always got this nasty, tepid, lukewarm water that they couldn't drink. They would have to strain it and boil it and other things like that. So Jesus is using the analogy that they're going to get. The analogy they're going to understand. He said, you're not hot, you're not cold. Guess what you are? You're just like that water you can't keep in your mouth because it's nasty. You're lukewarm, I'm going to spit you out. Ultimately, because of the affluence, again, they were very affluent people. They had the attitude, though, I don't need anything. I'm rich, I've prospered, I need nothing. And because of this, the church is just drifting along. It's not doing anything for God that is spectacular or spirit-driven. It's just existing. That's all. It's just there. And as I've already said, consider how much that looks like the church of America today. A church that has so much prosperity among its members that no one is really concerned about God because no one really needs anything from God. A church that is financially secure but spiritually lethargic.